small scales are awesome. I don't know how many people know this, but I used to have a little dabble in the N scale world, and to be fair, I didn't hate it, but I ended up getting the wrong curves, and like even locos, like this, would just constantly hop off the track. And when I saw that Hornby is doing TT, 120 for the first time since trying Hornby days, I believe, I was very excited. But it is really a make or bust deal, and I have opinions. First of all, this has been in the works for a long time, according to Simon Kohler, at least since 2019, and there are certain manufacturers and certain people, I dare I say uneducated people, who will say that Hornby is just ripping off Pico and Hellion and whatever other manufacturers are entering the range before Hornby even said anything. And whilst it's true that Hornby has indeed not shied away from basically producing the same models that other manufacturers have been producing just to get a slice of the pie first, I don't believe that this has been an impulse thing. Like, we've seen that they've produced models like the A4s, the A3s, they're currently working on the Class 08 and the HSTs, and I just don't believe that this is a case of Hornby seeing what Pico and Hellion were doing and they quickly scrounged up, whatever capacity they had to develop a range that would be completely outside of their scales that they've, currently have any stakes in, because, 0000 is not accurate, like, at all. It is 10 mil oversized, I think, but if you want to work with something that is correct, N-gauge is correct. So if you then want to make a scale that's between 00 and N-gauge, and then make it correct, suddenly you have a market that is compatible with the rest of the world. You don't have 00 being this kinda maybe sorta replacement for HO. And just to put into perspective how large this new scale would have to be. So if an N-scale mogul is about the size of a 00 scale 060, then, what would a TT one be like? It would be, like, this big, right? So suddenly you would have a lot more space to work with, even if you don't run a tail chaser layout, like Simon Kohler said. He proposed the idea of shelf layouts now becoming more and more of a thing, because, with the current housing climate, they would take up less space. It is strange that they would only have announced one small shunter to go for the launch of the range, but, whatever. It's just that, there are some things that we have to point out. I've watched the reveal trailer multiple times now, and one of the things that sticks with me is that, that locos will not be blobs anymore. They will not, it won't be a case of one tooling fits all, which, funnily enough, the old Hornby Terriers were a victim of this policy, where they neither looked like A1s or A1Xs.
And we can get lots of detail on it as well. It's not just a blob, and the models we've produced, they're not we haven't just done a generic A4 and a generic 08. We are able to do the variations as well.
So, there's already an improvement in the way that Hornby thinks about how they would develop these smaller locos. They know that there's an aversion to traction tire, so they realize how much they would gimp a locomotive, so they don't want to use the traction tires on their new range. However, on the subject of the wheels, do you notice how on this model the counterweights are on the opposite ends of the side rods? Well, Hornby's pre-production samples don't seem to be following convention in that sense. So, I hope that that's fixed, because if that isn't fixed, then yikes. I don't think it would be acceptable for Hornby to make such a basic mistake. And, with the entire, cutting out retailers thing, yeah, I understand why they would do it. The downside is that, you know, there would be less chance for people to discover the range because, you know, it's not in stores. So, you know, you wouldn't come across it, you know, the same way that you would come across another model in a store. And you'd think like, yeah, I'd want that. Like, for instance, this wagon that you saw in the opening, I just saw that at a second-hand stall at a vendor's fair, and I was just like, yeah, I'll have it. Sure. And, you know, sure, a new range would be more expensive, but it still takes away that side of the shopping experience, I guess. And speaking of taking away, you know, Helgen was kicking up a fuss again about how Hornby was supposedly taking away their market share, you know, because Hornby is now also developing a Class 31. Helgen, two things. You are the same company that said that only magazines can do proper reviews, because one notorious online reviewer gave you a bad review and you threw a hissy fit. So I don't know if Helgen is someone I would cry for. Secondly, your range contained the 31, the 66, and a totally unrelated steam engine, the Austerity tank engine. So why are you just dropping out entirely and not, you know, producing the many more variants of the Class 33 that you had planned, and, you know, the completely unrelated steam engine that Hornby is definitely not retooling because it's an old Dapple tooling? Come on now. It's also funny that Acura Scale was being all cute about, I don't get it, but we'll see. And I suppose that that's where it all goes in the end. We'll see, because, you know, Hornby is now producing everything. Buildings, track, locos, carriages, freight wagons, although the freight wagons were kind of few and far between. But it's very important that this is a do-or-die situation. Hornby can't just waste all of this capacity that they now put into this range, because you can tell that Simon Cowder, at least, has some faith in this range. You know, I don't want the brand to fail, because I think that there is some merit to having a range between N and O. I mean, you know, just look at this. Look at the scale difference. Then what would be a TT wagon? There is obviously a market for something like that if it was readily available. You know, it not being readily available, it might stunt the entirety of the effort that Hornby is putting into this, because, you know, they want to make people involved, but, you know, if they only have it on their website, which again I get, it's, you know, the prices can be kept down, which, let's be real, £200 for what basically is the full fat version of a locomotive and carriages in the set is nothing, and don't pretend like it is. You know, if this succeeds, then maybe, you know, other manufacturers, more manufacturers that are already established in O and N might give TT a shot, you know. And do you know who I genuinely think would have the most to gain from this situation? Metcalf. Think about it. You know, how cool would it be to just have mum, dad, and the kids, you know, make one of their cardboard kits? That would be so much fun. It would be such a good business model as well, because they could actually, you know, make cost-effective family fun packs. Unlike, you know, and maybe Hornby even said, like, maybe if TT succeeds, we can do an American loco. And I'm just saying, the money is in the PRR. I'm just saying. So, the final thing that I wanted to touch on, because this video has been all over the place, how cost-effective would it be for a non-UK based modeler like myself to get into TT by only ordering it from Hornby's website? Would there be merit for someone like me to just buy the relatively cheaper, smaller scale, you know, as opposed to, you know, buying from retailers, you know, the more established scale that is bigger and will thus leave me with less space? This might just be, you know, one big flash in the pan and then it's gone. But I don't want this to fail, and I hope that Hornby sees that, you know, I think the money in a range like this would be, you know, with smaller locos, and, you know, that eventually they're gonna cooperate with retailers more. But it's Hornby, we can't say for sure. And one final thing I would like to add, you know, before ending this video off is, Hornby said that they were trying to market this range more towards, you know, the family, instead of, you know, just dad and his son.
Appealing, and this is where our marketing will be, to everybody, not just as, you know, railways were some years ago, you know, toys for boys.
You know, which is fine, you know, I've no problem with that. That's not my thing. It's just, you know, that if they are going to go about it the same way that they've always gone about, you know, marketing their things when it isn't on, you know, in a magazine or something along those lines, then I don't know if we are going to get that female breakthrough that I think we're all hoping for in this hobby, because, you know, let's face it, it's a male-dominated market. You know, I just hope that they actually find a way to break through this, you know, mostly male-dominated space, because what is currently, you know, holding, you know, perhaps the number one spot in, you know, indoor family activities that, you know, mum, dad, and the kids can enjoy. Believe it or not, most parents that right now would be of the age where, you know, would have kids, or would have kids of the age where you could consider, you know, making a model railway together. Most of those parents are of the age where they, you know, grew up with the Nintendo 64, you know, the Nintendo Entertainment System. You know, they would have, you know, probably a Nintendo Switch, you know, a PlayStation even. And, you know, when Hornby has to compete with electronic devices like that, you know, I just hope that they know what they're doing with this alternative way of advertising.
Getting everybody aware, advertising in newspapers.
Just one small problem!
Who even reads the newspapers anymore, Simon? Why not go for television adverts or more aggressive YouTube marketing?
That having been said, you know, that's all I want to talk about. Thanks for watching. I owe you a Halloween video because my voice is still a bit croaky, and I didn't want to, you know, record a video when my voice was still completely croaky. I can feel my voice, you know, going as we speak. So, you know, maybe in November I'll upload a late spooky video, and I'll just market it, you know, the October 33rd special or something. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Cheerio!